I got into a bit of trouble and got my jaw broken away from football. And it was me getting ahead of myself. But Glenn Rudd called me in and I thought, that's me, finished. And he gave me a new contract and said, look, everyone makes mistakes. As long as you learn from it, then it's a good mistake to make. And I'll never forget that moment. And that was a low, but I was lucky to have made that mistake early on and to be given a second chance for it.
Yeah, thanks for coming in. Appreciate you having you in. I know you was out on the grass this morning and you've watched a few of the sessions and the boys' work. Any observations, anything you've seen?
I mean, the level from the age is high. I was impressed with what was out there.
Just interested to know where it all started for you and, from grassroots and what made you become a goalkeeper, sort of going back them years.
So I played for my local team, an age above, as a centre midfielder when I was 7, so I was playing for the under-8s. Got a trial at Norwich. My team didn't have a goalkeeper, so we had to rotate. I went in goal, basically got pulled in at the end of the trial and said, look, forget being an outfield player. We was impressed with what we saw in goal. Do you fancy it? And it was either take the opportunity and play for Norwich in goal or go back and play grassroots as an outfield player. I just wanted to wear the Norwich kit every week, and that was the decision made for me.
Yeah. Obviously coaching now yourself, looking back, how much has it changed from when you was an academy goalkeeper at Norwich?
Huge. I mean, we used to have a Tuesday, Thursday nights training with the team as an outfield player basically, and then Saturday morning for half an hour we'd get a part-time coach come in, and it was just sort of footwork over cones, catch a volley, and it was more of a warm-up than anything, and then you go over with your teams for an hour and then you play a game on a Sunday. At under 15s we used to be sort of May time, used to get a letter through the post to say if you was going to get retained or not, and I received 2 letters. One was a release letter and one was a retain letter. But that's when I started to take it seriously and thought, well, I need to make sure now that I kick on.
So then, in terms of your youth career at Norwich, I'm sure you've got fond memories from that. Any standout memories?
I suppose youth cups are always a massive thing in the back of your head. We had a great run. Got to the semi-finals, lost to City at the Etihad, and we won 3 penalty shootouts on the way there. I scored the winner and saved 3 or 4 throughout the penalty shootout. So that was the time when I got my pro.
So you as a youth goalkeeper, I'm curious to know what sessions did you like at that age? So
I've always said you remember your coach rather than the sessions. So how the coach made you feel rather than the actual session you've done. The goalkeeper coach that I had for that half an hour on a Saturday, his name was Paul Tong. I never forget him. Yeah. He was about 22 stone, 6'4", really big guy. But he would be throwing himself around in the session, and I can remember him doing it, like sitting here now thinking about it. And he just made it so enjoyable.
Sticking with this sort of age bracket we're on, 15s to 18s, I'm aware you was in and around the England pathway at their majors there. So what's your first memory of the England pathway?
So I played against Scotland in the Victory Shield. It was a deciding game, the last game of the 3. I think it was the first 15-20 minutes, got a back pass, live on Sky. I was in school the next day. Took a big touch, got tackled, scored. We win the game, so we win the Victory Shield, which is great. Going back to school the next day, obviously all my friends watching it. You're on telly for the first time, 15 years of age. You never forget them times. Like the first big mistake live on TV, 15 years of age. And
anything that helped you deal with that? Was there good support around you, or did you just have to get on with it?
I mean, it was tough. I had a lot of stick at school, but I suppose the support from friends, family, and from the coaches as well. Just being told it doesn't matter, you're going to make a million more, and I definitely made a million more mistakes.
And as we can see behind us, 19 caps overall at youth level, through the ages, 16 all the way up to 21. What was that? Again, similar question, experiences, any standout moments from the pathway? You've referenced the Victory Shield.
Yeah. I learnt so much on that. I was working with some top goalkeepers. So my age was, Jason Steele was the same age, Ben Amos, who was at Man United at the time. We had some top players in there from all different parts of the country, and it sort of brings you out as an individual, not just a footballer, putting that to one side, as an actual person.
Did you feel like you went back in a better place as a result of coming onto camps and experiencing the pathway?
Oh, 100%, because me as a person, I didn't believe I was good enough to be there. So being there and being around them types of players, like I had players in my under-17s team that were getting bought for 5-6 million by Spurs, by all the big teams, and I was at Norwich in the youth team. I think Danny Welbeck scored for Man United one weekend, and then we joined up, and I think I had a youth team game away somewhere, and just them experiences are just you can't get them anywhere else, and I feel like privileged and proud that I was actually able to do that.
How did you deal with not necessarily being the number one, if you like, for the times you came in at?
I mean, it's hard for anyone, and I think if you don't find it hard, then you're probably not in the right sport. You've just got to try and find things from the trip or from the game that you can take away to maybe get you into that position. Like, you work with some of the best coaches and best players, you're going to improve. You're doing shooting sessions with lads that are playing in the Premier League.
And just sticking on the England pathway, what was the tournament experiences like for you?
Oh, brilliant. I went to Ukraine to play in the Euro finals with the age above. We got to the final, got beat by Ukraine, and it was the first experience of flares, and it was packed, 40,000 people there for an under-19 final, and it was something I'd never experienced before.
And then just moving back over to the club side of things, so you're in the youth team now at Norwich. You're obviously trying to forge a career. So what was it like in terms of the transition into the first team at the time?
So after the Youth Cup, when we got knocked out, I then signed my pro. Back then we had an under-18s and a first team, so the goalkeepers all trained together, and then you'd go off into 18s and first team. There was no 21s in the middle. So it was very easy to transition across because you was around the players anyway, and they were harsh on us. They were, especially outfield players with goalkeepers, you know what it's like, they expect you to save every shot. But I mean, I was 16, 17 going across and getting called all the names under the sun by 32-year-old men. I remember one day one of the players said, don't just take it, like, stick up for yourself in the right way. And the first time I'd done it, I was so scared to say something back, but I did. And then it just changed from there, and it was like, okay, he's sort of turning into a man now. Yeah.
Well, can you remember a point where I suppose it became a little bit easier? You felt like you was making a transition, and you're starting to feel a bit more comfortable in your surroundings amongst the other players in the first team?
Glenn Rudd took me to the Ipswich away game as a third choice when I was 17. So obviously Norwich fan, local derby, massive game for the club, and being involved in that, and I was like, I want this every week, and then that gave me the taste for what I wanted to do.
Yeah. And then obviously moving into the senior squad and almost making a name for yourself in the first team squad. And again, I know you're a Norwich fan, and I'm sure it was very proud. How did you deal with that in terms of that transition? Right, you're now playing. And
I mean, it was tough. My first appearance, I come on as a sub, which it's how most goalkeepers make their debuts, and it is. Fraser Forster got sent off, and I come on to face a penalty. It was away at Gillingham, so he was in League One fighting for promotion. And then I started the next game against Orient, and we won 5-1, I think it was. And I thought, this is easy, And then Fraser come back in. Lucky for me, he got sent off 3 times that year, so I got 9 games. And we won the league, and it's sort of football life's brilliant.
Obviously, you're now a coach as well. What was your relationship like with your coach? Did you have many different relationships? How did you manage?
It was hard because I think, so James Holman was the goalkeeper coach when I was probably 15 to 17. He was brilliant, all about development. When I was 15, serving to Robert Green. But then over the stage of 3 years, I think I had 6 different goalkeeper coaches. Yeah. In a way, it's good because you just take little bits from each of them. They try and change or teach you new things, but I think it's just having the open mind just to try what your coaches
Mm.
you, because if you've never tried it, you don't know if it's going to work.
Mm. And just in that period of time there at Norwich, if you don't mind me asking, like, was there any like lows or really challenging moments that you can reflect back and think, how did I get through that? And
yes, basically at the end of the season, where I'd as a first year, I'd been on the bench twice, and I got into a bit of trouble and got my jaw broken away from football, and it was me getting ahead of myself. But Glenn Rudd called me in, and I thought, that's me, finished. And he gave me a new contract and said, look, everyone makes mistakes. As long as you learn from it, then it's a good mistake to make. And I'll never forget that moment. And that was a low, but I was lucky to have made that mistake early on and to be given a second chance for it. Yeah. And then obviously the highs of promotion and being involved in that. We won League One, and then the next season we finished second in the Championship. So within 2 years of your first 2 years of professional football, you're in the Premier League as a second choice goalkeeper. And I was never ready for that.
What makes you say you weren't ready for that, just out of curiosity?
The fact that I'd probably played 10 games of men's football, and then all of a sudden you're on the bench away at Stamford Bridge, and now having to come on to face a penalty against Frank Lampard.
Just lastly, I just want to tap into that a bit more about when you said you was getting ahead of yourself. Were there any other moments? I mean, when you say that, what did that look like in terms of you getting carried away?
It was purely the fact that I'd been on the bench and was now in that first team dressing room, and I thought, I've made it. And that's the worst thing you can do. If you think you're where you should be, and you're not, it could have meant that I never went on to even play another game.
So your first loan was to Preston, right? What age was you then?
20.
20, yeah. And how did that come about? So was you happy about it? Was it something you was pushing for? Did you want that challenge, or?
No, I never wanted to leave Norwich.
Yeah.
And it's probably the best thing that ever happened to me, that I was told by the manager at the time that there's no point in you being here. You need to go out and gain some experience. I loved every second of it.
Yeah.
I sort of created my own, rather than being young Declan from Norwich who come through the academy. I was just Declan at Preston.
I mean, it seems really positive there, but there must have been some challenges maybe with moving away from home.
So I went at the end of the January window, put straight in a hotel, and I was there by myself, and I was there from January all the way till the end of the season. It was hard, and like my missus worked and she was at university at the time, so she was still in Norwich, and I was lucky that it was a really good group of players, and it was a group of players that were very similar to what I'd been used to a few years before at Norwich, and it did just seem quite natural to be there. Yeah. I went from playing probably, I'm not sure, maybe 15 games over the space of 4 years, to then playing the last 18 games of the season, and then played 55 games the following season. So every cup and every league game, and we got to the semi-finals of the playoffs. And to have that amount of games in the space of 18 months, my development just like progressed. Yeah. And also being in with the 21s as well, travelling all over the country, or all over Europe, going to European finals, and it was a crazy 18 months with lots of travelling, and but football-wise, it couldn't have been any better for me at that time.
Yeah, and you referenced the 21s there. What were the goalkeepers in and around the age group at the time you was in the 21s at England?
It was Jack Butland and Jason Steele. I was pretty much third choice for 21s, which was hard because I was playing every week at Preston and then going away for maybe 2 weeks and not playing and coming back and then back in the team. But I was sitting behind Jack Butland, who I believe's, after working with him, probably one of the best all-round goalkeepers. In training, he was head and shoulders above all of us.
You say you're playing at Preston, and you're almost one of the key players there, and then you come to an England camp and you're not necessarily the key player. I'm sure it's quite tough, right? Yeah,
it's hard. And I mean, you go from playing Crawley and AFC Wimbledon away to then joining up and having Harry Kane and Wilfried Zaha and the calibre of player like that training with you. You're going from from that level to that level, and you need to be able to get straight up to it. And that was the drive I had, I think, when meeting up with England, especially with the 21s, is I've got to be at 100% every day, or I'm going to look sillier.
Yeah. What brought the level up so much? What made the level so high?
It was driven by, like, Jordan Henderson was in. He just drove it. Yeah. He demanded the best from everyone, and no days were easy. Every player was wanting to get the best out of himself, and they were all fighting for places. And then when you get closer to the European finals, you've then got to go up again because you're playing against the best teams in Europe.
Yeah. And then obviously now yourself, so transitioned into a coach. How long have you been coaching now?
About 2 years now.
Yeah. Well, I say you're now a coach. What's the biggest standout?
It's a completely different role to what I thought it would be.
Is it?
Yeah. The amount of work that goes into planning sessions, even putting the sessions on, and then sort of analysing the sessions after, and then I struggled to begin with. Yeah. I must admit it was hard, because what you think it is as a player to what it actually is completely different.
Yeah, yeah. And in terms of learning new skills, what's been the most challenging part of that transition?
I think letting go of what worked for me and what I done to what needs to be done from me as a coach.
Right.
Mostly as a first team goalkeeper, you're basically facilitating to be ready for the game on a Saturday. Whereas as a coach, you're looking at how can you develop the player to be better. And I've started off coaching, and I look back at my sessions and it was terrible. But it's what I used to do. Right. I enjoyed doing it, but then looking back, there was no real development put into the session. It was just facilitating what was needed for that goalkeeper.
You've referenced coaches that you've had in the past. Is there anything that you took from any of them that you now hold in good stead and think that's what I like? Yeah.
So Jonathan Gould at Preston, when he came in, he learned about me as a person, and as soon as he understood me as a person, he made me feel $1 million every single week. He knew exactly what I needed, and it was all because he took the time out to get to know me off the pitch, and it's something that I took from him, and I wish I'd have had it earlier.
Is that something you try and do with the players you work with at Norwich?
Yeah, obviously it's easier from probably a first team point of view because the ages are probably similar when you work with younger lads, but you just find a way to just have them little chats. Sometimes it's just a little jog before training, yeah, and just ask how they're getting on, or but just trying to get an understanding of how they're feeling mentally, because I think 90% of goalkeeping's all about up here. If you're not right up here, the rest of it isn't going to come.
And you're obviously on the badges now at the moment, so you've done your B with us and you're currently on the A. In that period of time, and obviously from when you've started coaching, how much have you played around with different ideas, and have you changed much in terms of your beliefs and your methodology or the way you work? Yeah,
I think the hardest thing was actually trying to work out what I wanted from a goalkeeper, like what I thought was the best way in my eyes for a goalkeeper to play. And it's not. Paul Clements come into Norwich as first team goalkeeper coach, and he opened my eyes to a whole new world of coaching. Just whether it comes from pre-training clips to the pre-activation before training being related to what they're doing out there, and analysing afterwards, and the type of sessions, and coming on the courses even. I mean, speaking to, there's some of the top goalkeeper coaches in the country at the biggest clubs in the country on them courses, and you've got to put your sort of ego to one side as a coach and take as much from everyone as you can to try and give the lads the best opportunity. Yeah.
If you was to give them any knowledge now, so if you could go back to when you're 14, 15, 16, although times have changed and things have moved on, but any real key bits of advice you'd pass on?
Yeah, I don't want to finish on like a dark bit, but don't waste a day. Yeah, because I had one training session, done my knee, never played again. So don't ever waste a day, and treat every day and put 100% into everything. Yeah, because if you do that, first of all, you're going to improve quicker. and you'll enjoy it more. If you know you've come off the pitch putting everything into it, you can always look yourself in the mirror and say you've done everything you can.
I mean, listen, I think it's been excellent. I'm sure everyone would agree. Really appreciate your time. So on behalf of everyone, I'd just like to say a big thank you for coming in. I think it's been brilliant. Ollie, we've got a shirt if you'd just like to present it to Dec. Well done, Dec. Brilliant work.
Thank you. Cheers, mate. Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Lads, just want to come up.